Hello everyone! Welcome to another English learning video from Slow English Stories. Today, I'm going to tell you about a powerful technique to improve your English speaking and listening skills, just like a native speaker. Have you ever heard of the shadowing technique? Let me explain. What is shadowing? Shadowing means listening to each sentence carefully, then repeat after me. Try to copy my words, my feelings, and my pronunciation like an actor. It helps you speak more clearly, listen more easily, and feel more confident in English. So, are you ready? Let's begin. My name is Emma. I'm 18 years old, and my life has always been defined by the quiet rhythms of a small town in America. I live in a place where everyone knows your name, but opportunities can be hard to find. This is the story of how a single act of honesty changed my life forever, and how I found love at my very first job. Last month, I finally finished high school. It was a day of mixed emotions. While my friends were talking about moving away to big universities, I was looking at the worried expressions on my parents' faces. My family does not have much money. My father works hard at the local mill, and my mother sews clothes for people in town, but it is never quite enough. I knew I couldn't ask them for tuition money. In fact, I needed to find a job quickly just to help them pay the monthly bills. I wanted to be a support, not a burden. Every day for 2 weeks, I woke up early, put on my best clothes, and walked around town. I walked until my feet ached and my shoes were covered in dust. I looked for those small help wanted signs in store windows. I visited the grocery store, the hardware shop, and even the local library. But every time I asked, the answer was the same. We aren't hiring right now, or we need someone with more experience. No one wanted to hire an 18-year-old girl with no work history. I felt a heavy weight in my chest. I felt sad, worried, and a little bit invisible. I began to wonder if I would ever find a way to help my family. One sunny morning, the heat was already rising from the pavement. I was walking down Main Street, my head down, lost in thought. Suddenly, I saw something dark and rectangular resting against the curb. It was a leather wallet, worn but expensive looking. I picked it up, my heart racing. When I opened it, my eyes went wide. Inside, there was a thick stack of cash, more money than I had ever held in my hands. There was also a driver's license. The man in the photo had a warm smile. The name on the license said Jake Miller. Tucked behind the ID was a small cream-colored business card for Jake's Coffee Corner. I looked at the money, then at the card. A small voice in my head whispered about how much that money could help my parents. But a stronger voice, my mother's voice, reminded me that honesty is the only way to live. I knew I must return this wallet. My mother always taught me that a good character is worth more than all the gold in the world. I looked at the address on the business card. The coffee shop was only 3 blocks away, tucked into a corner I usually bypassed. I walked quickly, clutching the wallet tightly. When I reached Jake's Coffee Corner, I stopped for a moment at the door. It was a small, cozy place with large windows and a green awning. As I pushed the door open, a little bell chimed, and the smell of fresh roasted coffee and cinnamon filled the air. It was intoxicating. The walls were covered in colorful paintings by local artists, and soft indie music played quietly in the background. I loved this place already. It felt like a sanctuary. Behind the wooden counter stood a young man. He was busy steaming milk, his movements practiced and graceful. He had dark, slightly messy hair and the kindest brown eyes I had ever seen. He looked to be about 20, maybe a little older. When he finished the drink and handed it to a customer with a bright, genuine smile, my heart skipped a beat. My pulse quickened, and I felt a strange flutter in my stomach. I had never felt this way about a stranger before. I walked up to the counter, my hands shaking just a little bit. "Excuse me," I said, my voice barely a whisper. He turned to me, his expression curious. "Are you Jake Miller?" He looked at me with surprise, his brow furrowing slightly. Yes, I am. How can I help you? I reached into my bag and held up the leather wallet. I found this on Main Street, near the park. I think it belongs to you. Jake's eyes opened wide. He instinctively checked his back pocket and then slapped his head against his forehead. Oh my goodness, I didn't even know I lost it. I must have dropped it when I was rushing back from the bank this morning. Thank you so much. He took the wallet and quickly counted the money. When he saw that everything was still there, he looked at me with a mix of shock and admiration. Everything is still here. You are incredibly honest, Emma, he said, reading my name from a school ID peeking out of my bag. Most people would have kept the money and thrown the wallet away. What can I do to thank you? Do you want a free coffee? A giant slice of our double chocolate cake? Anything. I shook my head, though the cake looked delicious. I don't need anything, really. I'm just happy to help. My mom would have been very upset if I did anything else. Then I looked around the shop again. It was busy, almost every table was full, and Jake looked a bit overwhelmed. I remembered why I had been walking the streets every day. I gathered my courage, took a deep breath, and got brave. Actually, I said, do you happen to need any workers? I'm looking for my first job and I learn very quickly. Jake stopped and looked at me, really looking at me this time. He glanced around his busy shop, then back at me. You know what? I do need help. Desperately. My old assistant quit last week to move to the city, and I've been doing everything alone. You're honest, you're punctual, and you have a good heart. Would you like to work here? I couldn't believe my ears. I felt like I wanted to jump for joy. Really? You'd hire me? Yes, please, he laughed. Can you start tomorrow morning at 7? Of course. I'll be here early, I promised, beaming. The next morning, I arrived at exactly 7:45 a.m. Jake was already there, grinding beans. For the next few hours, he became my teacher. He showed me how to operate the espresso machine, how to froth the milk until it was silk, and how to serve customers with a smile. He was incredibly patient. When I accidentally spilled a latte or forgot an order, he didn't get angry. He just smiled, handed me a cloth, and helped me learn from the mistake. As the days passed, they began to fly by. I discovered that I loved working at the coffee shop. I loved the regulars who came in every morning, and I loved the creative energy of the place. But most of all, I loved working with Jake. During the quiet moments between the morning rush and the lunch crowd, we would talk. I learned that he was 20 years old and used the money his grandmother left him to open this shop. It was his passion project. My dream is to have 3 coffee shops in this town, he told me one rainy afternoon. I want to create spaces where people feel at home. In return, I told him about my family, my desire to help my parents, and my own quiet dreams. I want to go to college someday, I whispered. I want to study business, but first I need to save every penny I can. Jake listened to everything I said. He didn't just hear the words, he really listened. He asked about my favorite books and what I liked to do for fun. We both loved mystery novels and had a shared obsession with old black and white movies. We laughed at the same jokes and often found ourselves reaching for the same coffee bean bag at the same time. After 2 weeks of working side by side, I realized something terrifying. I was falling in love with Jake, but he was my boss and I was just his new employee. What if he didn't feel the same way? What if telling him spoiled everything and I lost the job I worked so hard to find? I kept my feelings hidden behind a professional smile. One evening, a heavy summer storm rolled into town. We were closing the shop together. Jake was at the counter counting the day's earnings, while I was in the back wiping down the tables and stacking the chairs. Suddenly, there was a blinding flash of lightning followed by a deafening boom of thunder. The lights flickered and then went out completely. The whole street was plunged into darkness. There was a total power outage. "Don't worry, Emma," Jake's voice called out from the darkness. "I have a box of emergency candles in the storage room. Just stay where you are." He heard him walking towards the back, his footsteps echoing on the wooden floor. Then I heard a terrifying sound. A heavy metal shelf loaded with bags of coffee beans and supplies had collapsed. Jake was pinned on the floor, the shelf resting heavily across his right leg. He was pale and sweat was beaded on his forehead. "I can't move it," he gasped. "It's too heavy." I tried to lift the corner of the shelf, but it wouldn't budge. "I'll call for help," I said, reaching for my phone again. But when I looked at the screen, there were no bars. My phone has no signal. The storm must have knocked out the tower. "No, wait," Jake said, his voice strained. "There's a backup key under the cash register. Use it to get out. The front door is locked electronically and it won't open without power. You have to go find someone." I didn't hesitate. I found the key in the dark, unlocked the heavy front door, and ran out into the pouring rain. The street was deserted, but I saw a police